Guys, my name is Una, and today Crypto did all the work, so I will sit here and look pretty as he continues to do so.
Oh man, I'm always the pretty one. I'm very nervous. Hard to screw up a Christmas story though, right?
If you have been here before, welcome back, and if you're new here, we take a conversational approach to literature, and every Christmas, we made a promise to start looking at how maybe other cultures look at and explore this wonderful holiday. Last year, we did Russia. We'll leave a playlist down below if you'd love to check out the book A Very Russian Christmas. This year, we have the very lovely A Very German Christmas. So we're going to go through some German stories. We're going to do this one in depth. We'll have some live stream as well as some blogs where we're learning about German history and culture. And hopefully we're going to have a live stream with Klaus from the Contradictorian, who will tell us whether we're right or wrong about a lot of the things we assume about German Christmas.
And as all who start off with publication information, Interview with Santa Claus was published in 1949, and it was translated by Henry N. Gifford, and we'll leave a link down below where you can read for free. A little bit about Kästner before we get into plot summary, themes, and analysis is he is a German native, and he was actually born in Dresden, and he will serve in World War I, and then he will not serve in World War II, and will be heavily criticized by the Third Reich, and many of his books actually will be burned by the Nazi Party, and the only reason we have some of them today is because he will save his own personal collection, which allows us to have this gift of reading them today.
All right, let's hit that plot and then jump into some Christmas discussion.
So to start off with plot, we have the narrator, Erich, who I believe is Erich Kastner telling this story, is at home, and so far throughout the day, 8 people have rung his doorbell for various reasons. The 9th person happens to be none other than Santa Claus himself, who Erich politely invites for coffee and raisin bread, and then is actually surprised when old Saint Nick accepts his offer to come in and hang out for a little bit. As they sit down and enjoy coffee and raisin bread, they reminisce of times long ago when Erich was a little kid and he was a little bit naughty. And we see this kind of building of trust of this relationship between the two. Next, they smoke cigars and discuss how Santa and Christmas actually work. They talk about the delivery, they talk about the beard and the stress of the job of delivering all these presents to thousands and millions of children around the world.
I feel like that would be me if I were to meet Santa Claus. I would just bore him to death. Wait. So how exactly do you pull this off? And what do you do? I would totally be peppering him with these questions too.
Well, you'd be asking about the magic of Christmas, really, right? Or is it more technology? And I kind of like that this guy is pretty straightforward. How does this really work? Because it must suck to only, work these 3 weeks, but work 24 hours a day for 3 weeks straight, right?
Indeed.
And as the story continues, the doorbell rings yet again, and they are interrupted by a beggar who's selling postcards. And Erich buys some quickly and rushes back to Santa to not miss his opportunity to ask more questions. Unfortunately, as Erich returns to the sitting room, Santa is readying himself by putting his boots back on and getting ready to be on his way, continuing with his, job and all. Erich watches sadly as Santa departs through a window and sees Santa strangely talking with the beggar who sold him the postcards. A few hours pass, and then another delivery man shows up, and Erich goes to pay for his evening dinner and realizes that his wallet is missing. He then realizes that his cigars and cigar box is missing, his Zippo lighter, his silver cigarette case, cufflinks, and even a string of pearls are missing. And we realize that Santa has robbed him blind.
Well, I think we're meant to assume that, right? Because who else could it be, theoretically?
Well, the only other person, thing, creature is his cat that's in the house because he doesn't have a wife or children or anything. So it has to be Santa that's stolen all of these things. So the question is, do we believe that this is the real Santa Claus and that he's punishing Erich, or is it a con artist? And I kind of lean both ways, and there's some things I want to discuss as we go through here.
Okay, yeah, I had never even considered that it was real Santa and that this was punishment. I had always assumed it was the con man, because I gotta admit, as soon as the story opened, I never for a second believed it was a real Santa. Just even if you looked at the pronouns they choose, when they would call, Santa or Saint Nick, or when they would say you. This guy frequently didn't get those exalted pronouns and stuff. It was just very strange the way it was set up, and the way that the guy was kind of dodging questions. I thought it was like not Santa the whole time. So I realized like the wool over most people's eyes is pulled, and that's the trick. I still enjoyed the story, but the whole time I never thought it was the real Santa.
Well, here's kind of my argument for a little bit that it is. So the idea of Santa Claus is based off a real life person, Saint Nick. And we have a lot of religious references throughout here to Saint Nicholas. And Santa, even though he may be deceitful and maybe the con man, he really sells this. He talks about, and I quote, Christmas gets more and more expensive century after century. He's going for this con 100%. So if he is grifting this guy, he's doing an amazing job. He's selling the part. As they talk about specific things, he talks about his beard and how scratchy it is, and that he doesn't shave it, but only certain times of the year. I mean, he is selling this, that he is the real Santa Claus.
No doubt. But I still don't think it's him.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably right, but it was funny that they really do humanize him through this as well, so maybe you do get that feel that this is just a guy, because, I mean, I don't think any of us as children would picture Santa Claus smoking a stogie, right? I cracked up laughing when the guy's like, do you want a cigar? And Santa's like, yeah, sure. I mean, could you imagine one of those mall Santas just whipping out a cigar in the middle of Macy's and start smoking? I mean, come on.
It'd be, what's his name, Billy Bob Thornton, just bad Santa, just sticking his feet up on the desk, all muddy.
Right, yeah. But some of the other things that I found very interesting in this story is that Kästner is very, very specific in some details in here. And he talks about very specific months. If you map them out, they talk about October, they talk about November, they talk about December, they talk about January, and they talk about February. Very specific things happen in each of these months. In November, he gets all of his materials and he's collecting all of his stuff getting ready for Christmas. And in December, he does all his actual work where, he reads the letters, finds out who's not, who's nice, and then delivers all the presents. And then in January, he starts to draw up the balance of what he's going to owe because he has to pay for all these things. And then I thought it was very comical that in February, he finally shaves the beard because it's too scratchy to have. And we'll talk more about that later. And one thing that we realize here is that the Santa is the 9th guest that has rung the doorbell that day, and biblical record says that Christ died in the 9th hour of the day. So we come back to those religious elements that this guy really might be the real deal.
Do you know who the 10th, so that would mean the 10th visitor came next, right? Do you remember what the 10th commandment is?
The 10th commandment is thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, covet. It's the one that you're not going to covet anything. And this is obviously, don't be greedy. And Santa steals all his stuff. And so I don't know if he's paying him back for being a bad child or again, if he's just a con man.
I'll say this. If he pulled that off where he specifically made that little reference to like the 10th commandment, I'll give him the clap for that one. That's smooth.
Yeah, and I think that you're right that there is an element of the con in there, that something isn't quite right, that this may just be a guy pretending to be the real Santa and pulled the wool over some guy's eyes that's, alone, wanting to share, a cigar and some camaraderie with somebody because the only other creature there is Paula, which is Erich's cat, and it's a black cat. And a lot of times in literature, black cats are going to represent some type of, bad omen or bad luck. And this guy has a little bad luck come to him as all his prized possessions get stolen. So I don't know. He's probably a con artist, but I really like the idea of that this could have been the real Santa. He's just paying him back for, all those things he did wrong. Maybe a little bit he was a Scrooge or something, because it does mention that Erich wasn't the greatest of children.
Right. So another thing too, you brought up that all of the months that he went into detail on were winter months, where winter typically represents kind of like the end of the season, hibernation, death even. And if you think about this being the fake Santa Claus, there's even that line where he talks about, well, all of these imposters are going to lead to the death of belief, the death of Santa.
The story is a great metaphor for the decay of society or the rottenness of children. And I mean, if you think about it, we use this story of Santa Claus as almost like the stick. I mean, in life, you have the carrot, a positive reward, and you have the stick, a punishment for not doing something right. And you use Santa Claus almost as a stick, right? But as a carrot at the same time, as if you're bad, Santa's going to bring you coal, and if you're good, you're going to get presents. And I love the quote from the story that says, "These phony Nicholases," and they use the real name for the first time here, "shoot up like mushrooms from the ground." And mushrooms is a specific call, I think, to this idea of the decay of society and the popping up of greed.
Well, I'll tell you what, I get greedy at Christmas time because they're like, all these companies are like, "Hey, I'll sell this to you for like 20% off." And I'm like, well, I wasn't interested in it at all before, but for some reason when it's 20% off, now I want it. Well, what does that say about me?
And Santa, even in the story, talks about how he hoards up the items, and that when he goes to buy things, the farmers or the toy makers and people that he's buying stuff, they jack up the prices. And then, like you said, maybe, they double the price, but then they give you 50% off and you feel like you're getting a deal, but you aren't. And there's some economy thrown in here. And there's some economics thrown in here as well, where Santa, talks about tariffs, that when they trade things across the borders, there's more money being spent. And I love how the fact that despite all of this, of Erich being robbed at the end, you have a good moral story come through where Erich sees the cheer and everything, and he's like, I guess it's okay that, I lost my cigars because I don't have a Zippo lighter to light them anyway, so I'm better off this way. So despite losing all of some of his most valuable possessions, he sits down with a meal with his cat, enjoys the camaraderie with his cat, has a delicious meal, and is happy. And I think, isn't that kind of the point of Christmas, is that it's a life lesson that what is truly valuable isn't the stuff we get, but the people that we get to be with.
So there we go. A fun Christmas story. Not to say that I didn't enjoy the Russian ones, but they were very... they went to some deep, dark places. I think this one was on its path, but then to your point, it kind of had the happy ending, that moralistic teaching of, don't be obsessed with things and, spend the time with other people. And I think that makes this a really fun story.
Yeah, this is a Christmas story, so I think like all of them, we have to rank it a 10 out of 10. Because you and I love Christmas. 10
out of 10. There you go. Every Christmas story is a 10 out of 10. Check out that playlist for A Very Foreign Christmas. We'll put all of our Russian and German talks into that list. And you can follow along for free. We're going to have some more German Christmas celebrations coming up. And we hope to continue this journey with you guys. Hope you subscribe. Una out.
Merry Christmas or whatever you celebrate. Peace to all.
Happy
all
holidays!
And Merry Christmas and all a good night.
I'm a really bad voiceover artist. I could never do voiceovers.
All right, end this. Merry Christmas, guys.